can't really talk about education without first talking about the budget,
Obviously,
right? I mean,
obviously.
education is one of the biggest parts of the budget. What's on the chopping block in terms of education?
Okay, it's not going to be specific programs. If you look at where the state is heading and what people need to understand, it doesn't matter if Terry Goddard had won, Jan Brewer, it doesn't matter if Steve Yarborough were Senate President or Steve Pierce or Russell Pierce. The deficit we face and the available solutions, there would be cuts to everybody regardless. It's just that deep of a deficit.
So you're saying no program? You said no specific programs are going to be cut?
Yeah, what I meant by that is there will be no building renewal money. There will be no soft capital. There will be, I'm trying to think, other funds. But for the first time ever, there will most likely be a decrease in this basic state funding level for education. And that's going to be difficult for everybody to swallow because it's never happened before that we've gone into the actual formula and decreased that amount. But we're down to that level. And we're not the only state. Nevada's deficit is even far worse than ours, California's. You're going to see numerous states have to solve their budgets by cutting education, healthcare, other government services.
How do you soften that blow?
Okay, that's a great question. One of the first things you do is you start looking at innovative ways to deliver education. And that's really, there's a conference that several of us attended, the iNACOL conference, inacol.org. At the iNACOL conference, they talk about what other states are doing as far as blended learning, online learning, integrating digital content into the classroom. Go ahead.
Oh no, continue.
Well, one of the big things is called OER, Open Educational Resources. That's the key word for the future, Open Educational Resources. It's very high quality content that's available to classrooms and districts and charters to use for free.
In terms of K through 12, early childhood education, universities, are one of these going to get hit harder than the other, or do you think it's going to be across the board?
For the year we're in, we're pretty safe with the maintenance of effort.
Yeah.
It's the big funding cliff that starts July 1st, 2011. Everybody will be cut. It may be disproportionate to universities. Unfortunately, because a good university system brings with it jobs, skills, things like that. But because tuition can be increased with the cuts, that means universities will probably be cut disproportionately compared to K-12. You can't increase tuition on K-12 students.
We've seen voters really willing to support education. Prop 100,
Yes.
handedly rejected Prop 302. What message, as a legislator, what do you think that message is?
The tremendous value for education. People want a strong educational system. Here's the challenge the state of Arizona faces, and once again, we're not alone. We need to come up with $947 million to fund our share of the federal health care program. That's brand new money. So that means, let's say we do raise taxes, because in the past, people that are pro-education, a lot of them have said, hey, let's just raise taxes to a level where we can fund education. The first $947 million of any new revenue is, by law, has to go to health care. Any new money for education would be above and beyond that. Very, very difficult situation to be in.
So you don't see any new taxes?
There will be increases in revenue,
Yeah.
but once again, they will go toward health care. We're required by law to fund that, which is why you hear Russell Pierce talking about, hey, maybe it's time to take the feds on this health care issue. I'd be supportive of some of that.
You would be?
I'm not supportive of saying, hey, you keep all your money, we'll take care of it ourselves, because $7 billion is almost equal to our state budget.
Yeah. What about access?
To tell the feds, hey, this. One, I'm glad we're part of the lawsuit. We need to win that, but it's moving forward so slowly. That's the big concern that the 20 states have. But we need to scale back the benefits that are derived. We don't have the kind of money to support the richness of the program that we provided.
So let's talk about your priorities. What's on the agenda for education?
Very, very simple for education. Because there are cuts coming, we have to do some things to help alleviate the pain of those cuts. Number one, and this is the governor's number one education issue also, we do not have a data system in the state of Arizona that teachers and administrators can use to improve academic achievement.
Really?
We do not have a longitudinal data system that gives the feedback that a teacher needs to be effective. Our ADE has claim that they've had one for years. Turns out they don't. The districts and the charters have known that for years. But it has risen to a level where if we don't get one in the next 2 years, we're toast. So it's my number one priority, it's the governor's number one priority, and it's John Hoopenfield's number one priority also.
Okay. So you guys are all aligned on
We are.
that.
We had a great meeting last Friday. We're all aligned on it. Now, what's interesting, it doesn't require anything from the legislature. It's not a statutory change. Literally, it's the governor's office and Senator, now Superintendent Hoopenfield saying, let's make it happen. There's going to need to be some money from some different pots that would have to help with that. But it won't depend on appropriation from the legislature.
And do you want to talk a little bit about just on reporting about the blended schools?
Because that's our number two. Well, you've got the budget and you've got the longitudinal data system. Number 3 is the whole concept of digital learning, blended schools, hybrid schools. The future belongs to that educational system that allows students to move at their own pace and in their own method of learning. Right now in Arizona, and not just Arizona, in most states, everything's defined by 180 days and seat time. So there's one teacher in front of a classroom of students with one textbook. They sit there for 180 days, and it doesn't matter if you're the smartest kid in class or the kid struggling the most, you all have to sit there the same amount of time.
Do you see any resistance to that? Because it is very untraditional.
It is. It's a completely new way of thinking.
Yeah.
So yes, you're going to see resistance from those who are afraid of what the future looks like. Change is going to be difficult for some. They're used to going in with their one textbook every day. They're very comfortable with that. But this change is coming with or without us. And it's interesting because Arizona has the most competition in K-12 education. We offer the most parent choice. Those who don't adapt will quickly be left behind.
Anything else on your top priorities?
Other issues would be going to a performance funding model for the universities.
Okay.
Right now we pay them just on enrollment instead of who moves through the system. And there's a group of lawmakers and top ed leaders that are in Indianapolis today with the Lumina Foundation designing what this new performance funding model looks like.
I know Tea Party hasn't necessarily always been your greatest supporter. How do you feel about the Tea Party Senate we've been hearing about?
People have to define what that means. It's one thing to rage against the machine. It's another to operate the machine. Now what's interesting, the Tea Party favors smaller government, so do I. Hybrid learning is a way you bring better results with smaller government. So it's funny, I think we're going to find my strongest supporters for where we're going in education will come from that Tea Party movement, which is exciting.
What personally, why have you always been so invested in education?
Great question. Literally, it starts with 7 kids because I want them to achieve, and it's just an exciting area to work in because it's the future of our country, depending on how we educate the students. So Arizona's got a lot of challenges. We've got lots of different groups that are working on education, but we're not part of a cohesive group. We're not necessarily all moving in the same direction. Can we get that group organized in the next 2 years? We have a positive future ahead. Arizona really does. We're starting to see some upticks in different areas. I think our recovery is going to take a little longer because of the housing crisis. We still have a number of homes underwater. In fact, I think the majority of homes in Arizona may be underwater, or at least worth a lot less than they were 3 years ago. But we see some bright spots in the future.